He walks a pace with her easily. His strides are crisp but unhurried, as if he hadn't dodged arrest by virtue of her august presence, or brutally killed 3 thieves in public with a gesture and a word. Now that she thought about it, his entire form was designed to be as unassuming as possible. Baggy pants in a pattern designed to blend with earth and vegetation, thick black boots, a warm-looking shirt in dull green with a hood and a large pouch on the front. Everything he wore was just loose and baggy enough to hide armor or any number of surprises, let alone his horrifying axiom tricks. She had underestimated him and found herself intrigued. She needs a topic of conversation and smiles before asking. This is a new species. There is no telling what might scare him off. So, how do you go about inventing some kind of water-to-blood or blood-to-acid technique? Cabin fever, is the extremely confusing response. Oh, right. The words translate, but not the meaning, he says, rubbing his chin. I suppose the best way to explain it is chronic boredom and restlessness on an enormous scale in each and every person on the ship. Our initial journey outwards from Earth to the edge of cruel space took 1/4 of a year. Comparatively, after breaching the border and bringing the systems online, we've made much better time. A mere 5 weeks from cruel space to here in Centris. Was it truly so horrible? You have no idea how much you rely upon gravity to center yourself until you go without it? Simple things like cleaning yourself, feeding yourself, or even rest require complicated and unusual rituals. We shipped out with an overlarge crew, so the Dauntless was full nearly to capacity. There was no quiet place to gather our thoughts, no reprieve and no release. Just an environment that gives one the sensation of wrongness, and nothing to do but slowly go mad from the stillness and nothingness. Surely sleeping the hours away would suffice, or some form of exercise, she asks, concerned. The thought of ship travel without something to occupy one's thoughts or even gravity had never truly crossed her mind. For even eating or bathing to become a complicated ritual was concerning. We did a lot of sleeping, yes. I was part of a think tank about the possibilities of finding some method of suspended animation. Anyways, we also would push against things and each other to keep our muscles working. Exercise bands were also used. Without those techniques, we would have withered physically, he explains before breaking into chuckles. I was actually using some when we finally broke into real space, and I missed the warning about the artificial gravity about to be turned on. I was listening to music at the time, so I suddenly found myself on the wall and pulling a rubber band in the floor, which I then slammed onto like a chump. Did it hurt? She asks politely, as she's actually rather entertained by the story and easily leading him back to where she wants him. It was a good hurt, he says with a smile. After so long in what felt like an unending surreal dream, it was like waking up. I could move properly again. I could run and lift things and actually have a proper shower. It's the simplest things you treasure when you lose them. Oh yes, I cannot even imagine what it would be like to be unable to breathe a tongue of flame. Or goodness me, sleep without being strapped down to something. She says as her mind runs through the sheer havoc. Weeks upon weeks of weightlessness would play on herself or any of her sisters or cousins. Something he had endured for months. I'm glad you understand. We all pretty much cracked. Madness spread amongst us like a plague. Then we were finally out. There was so much to learn and do, and then we were attacked by pirates. Everyone went out for an eager fight. Things lined up and made sense, and then it was over so quickly. Most of us barely had time to do anything but get ourselves excited and eager before it was finished. Oh dear. I've been in a tournament or two like that. All kinds of build-up and excitement, and then nothing. It's enough to drive a girl to drink. She says as she guides him to the left. Now, just past the ornate fountain and in, then she can lock him down properly and legally, and be properly married to a worthy husband and not just invited into a family as a gesture of pity. Not Miro Noir the Matchless anymore. Oh no. Now just to seal it. Thinking of something tasty? Vernon asks her, and she's startled out of her train of thought. You licked your lips, remembering a meal? Anticipating, she replies, very observant, very observant of him. Oh, fair enough. You said you'd explain that bit about it being considered suicide to fight against you, or rather against Apuk battle princesses whom count you among their number. Care to explain why? Feel free to boast, he offers, and she feels a smile blossom across her face before she can stop herself. Oh my, you certainly know how to make a lady feel special. I'll gladly tell you about the Shellcracker or Broken Shell tournament. It hails back to the earliest days of the Apuk people, before the founding of the Galactic Federation of Systems. You see, we Apuk have never forgotten that in our pursuit of the strength of the gods we surrendered our armor to better reach for it. And such we used that sacred gift knowledge to reforge our armor from stone and steel and have the best of both worlds. To this day, wearing a cuirass in the shape and style of our ancient shells is very common. The Broken Shell tournament is a test of agility, power, and forging skill. You must have a shell cuirass to enter, and you must protect it each round as you wear it to battle. So you have to break your enemy's armor to pass a round? Correct. Each match has 6 fighters take the field at once. There are no manufactured weapons allowed. Just raw strength and axiom power. Okay, I'm starting to see why it's suicide to try to fight you 5-on-1. You've already made a mockery of such a petty advantage, Vernon says with a smile as he reaches up and draws the quotes around the term advantage. This sets her off on a giggle fit due to just how dry his tone is. Indeed, when you win all the rounds and shatter every other girl's armor, you present your own shell to the Hall of Ancestors. Then and only then do you earn the right to wear a crown and are named Princess. She boasts and informs him at the same time, it's important to have your achievements honest, otherwise they stand a chance to figure you out and any respect is forever lost. Sounds like quite the event. Do you have any recordings of it? I'd love to watch. I actually have some copies in my apartments. They're opposite of the fountain now, actually, she says, and he re-examines the waterworks. 4 pillars of water shoot up and pour back down into an endlessly overflowing clover-shaped pond, just deep enough to reach the waist on him. Is that it? He asks, pointing straight to her small estate exactly opposite of them. Yes, precisely. This fountain is lovely, but such a chore to get around. It's one of the larger ones in the district, she says, and he chuckles. He doesn't know she's deliberately guided him the long way around to give herself more time to woo him. She was certain of herself, but no warrior is harmed by being thorough. Care for a shortcut? He asks, and she blinks at him oddly. What does he mean by that? Here, he says, stepping to the side and onto the fountain. He takes a step out onto the flowing water and balances upon it with ease. He then holds out his hand to her. Come on. Ever had a walk on the water before? She weighs the options quickly. On one hand, strolling upon the water with a man is unbearably romantic, and it's a very sweet gesture. On the other, he might slip and drop her, and that just wouldn't do for a battle princess. She might even have to consider it an insult and demand restitution, which would kill the romance she's been all but wrestling into place. Which is all moot. Refusing would kill the mood. She takes his hand and feels the axiom flow from him to her like a gentle hug. His touch is so delicate it feels like the most minute of an increase in temperature rather than the force of nature it truly is. Most go for sheer power and excess with axiom use. Vernon is using a needle where most would apply a jackhammer and succeeding. Her delicate, formal footwear is held up firmly by the water and she stands upon it without issue. The hems of her dress might get a little wet, but this is an amazing move. He gently kisses the back of her gloved hand. Shall we? He asks, and she nods. He pulls her close at the waist and, still holding her hand, glides across the surface of the water, his firm but gentle grip carrying her along with him. She gasps at the movement and the slight wake they leave behind, painfully aware that at this point there are cameras pointed at them. She catches a grin on his face, and he suddenly seems to throw her out while holding fast to her hand. With a spin, she's brought back in and picked up at the waist as he twirls upon the water before letting her down and continuing the glide as if nothing happened. I always wanted to do that, he says with a fond chuckle. Thank you for the opportunity, Lady Miro Noir. What? That move was elegant, agile, and astounding. Flawless from one step to the next, even as they come to outer edge of the fountain. In a single move, he picks her up gently, steps off the fountain and places her on the ground again, dry and perfectly balanced. Not once did his hand stray anywhere but at her waist and hand to guide and balance her. Not once did he hesitate or falter. Not once did he seem even slightly uncertain. Her heart pounds in her ears as she is forced to use some measure of axiom to stop herself from blushing like a young maiden in a practice shell staring at some lewd magazine or another. "I apologize for the liberties I took, madam. My social teacher, Sir Masterson, told me to be bold and sincere. I hope I've caused no offense," he says smoothly. Offense? Offense? He just swept her off her feet in a moment that is no doubt making her the envy of entire worlds. What woman in her right mind would take offense at that? "No, no offense. If you could please," she asks, gesturing towards her home. She hasn't let go of his hand yet. She doesn't want to. She was supposed to seduce him, not be seduced by him. She just has to get him inside, get an official proposition going and have him accept her token. Then just send in a recording, and then when he's properly married to her, get started on a few children. 8 sounds like a good place to start. Then maybe how many others her sister wives will want, when she's had her 8. 8 is a lucky number, after all, being each direction the goddess's spines point from off her shell. "That was a wonderful bit of fun. What do you call it?" she asks as she pulls him ever so slightly towards her home. "Well, to be honest, milady, we don't have a name for it. It wasn't water skiing or ice skating. Before axiom practice, we could only do stunts like that on frozen water, or rather ice, or at great speed. The funny part is that I've never been much of a skater. Yet I can glide on the water very well, it seems," he says, and her smile is a little strained now. She wants him, and is running low on patience. "Indeed. Well, perhaps we could discuss further over drinks. I have something I'd like to show you, Mr. Shay." She invites him in. The door, sensing the indicator in her brush, opens for them and she leads him in. "I don't see any camera. The door must have been triggered by something else," he notes absently as he follows her in. "Excuse me a moment. These boots will carry a man across continents without trouble, but they're not the most delicate or clean things," he says as he pauses to unlace then open his boots. Now's her chance to slip away and finish preparations. "Of course. There's something I need to attend to quickly. There's a sitting room to the left here, if you'll excuse me a moment," she says, picking up her petticoats and hurrying into the house. The control gem in her brooch glimmers somewhat and realigns the windows ever so slightly. She doesn't want the entire street gawking at her alone time with her soon-to-be husband after all.